Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Nurse's Thread. Today on the channel, I'll be showing you how to make a dartless skirt with both contour using the hip allocation method. If it's something you're interested in, keep watching. Give this video a thumbs up and let's get right into this. Firstly, you'll be needing your pattern paper for this. So the first thing we're going to do is to divide our paper into two because we'll be using this to draft for both the front and the back. Now, to do this, go ahead and take your round hip measurement divided by 4 plus extra inches. So I just used 14 inches to divide my paper into two so that I have enough to work with. I just went ahead to mark 14 inches from this other end, which will serve as the center front. So I'll just mark that throughout the paper from the top to the bottom, and after that I will just make a line at the point which I have marked. So we have that down. So the first thing we're drafting is the front part. Now from the top of my paper, which is serving as the waist, I'll go ahead and mark my waist to hip and then the waist to knee measurement. So it's either your 8 inches from the waist to the hip or your 9 inches depending on your height and the width of your the roundness of your butt. So I'm just going ahead to rule my lines across. Since I'm drafting this on a pattern, I will just mark my full length at 40 because this is going to be a gown, and I will make a line at that point also. Then after that, I'll go ahead and label the lines I have. This is the hip, the knee, and then the skirt length. Okay, so we'll finish doing that. Now, before we get into this, we're going to do some calculations to do this. So we're trying to make a dartless skirt using both contour and hip allocation. Now, the hip we're working with is 42 inches. That's like the circumference of the hip I'm working with for this project, 42 inches. Now, we're going to be sharing this 42 inches into two, like divided into two. We'll give the front half and then the back half. Now for the front hip, which is 21 inches, while after dividing 42 you have 21. For the front hip, you're going to minus 1.5 from that, which will give 19.5 inches. Okay, that's for the front. You're going to be minusing 1.5 inches. Then for the back, you are going to add 1.5 inches to the back. So for the front, we have 19.5. For the back, we have 22.5 after that calculation. Now, when we are drafting on our pattern, we will not be using this entire what we got from this calculation. Now, remember that usually we divide our hip by 4 when we're marking or we're not doing the hip allocation method. So, but in this case, since we already shared this into two, we will just divide our hip into two instead of 4. Okay, so for the front, which is 19 and a half, when you're going to divide that by 2, okay, because remember our fabric is always on a fold. Then for the back also, you're going to divide that hip circumference by 2. So I hope you understand that. So we'll be working with 9.75 inches for the front, and then for the back 11.25 inches. I hope you understand that. So you're not going to divide your hip by 4. This applies to the hip area. It's not going to affect the waist at all. Okay, so this is the calculations. This is what we're working with, okay, for this. So I hope you understand that. Now we're going to apply this to our pattern. Now for the waist measurement, go ahead and take the circumference of your waist divided by 4, so that's quarter of your waist. Then at the hip, go ahead and place that measurement you got. So for me, I got 9.75 inches. I'll go ahead and place it at the hip, taking my measurement from this other end of the paper. Okay, so you can see how I'm placing my tape and it's going to go that way, right? Now to get the knee measurement, what we're going to do is that we will minus 1 inch from what we got from the hip. Now for the hip, we got 9.75, so we're going to minus that 1 inch from that. So at the knee, we should have 8.75. Now, note that you can also use half inches for this if you don't want the skirts to be um, tight, like fitted around the knee area. Okay, so instead of 1 inch, you can go ahead and minus half of an inch from your knee area and then mark it down. Now, this is a straight gown. There's a kind of fitting it has when the knee is because the knee is not meant to be all straight down from the hip. You're supposed to have like a little curve around that area. So I just went ahead to mark that and then connect the points together. Now I'm going to extend what I have at the knee to the full length of this. So I just went ahead to mark it down at that point, and after that I will use my straight rule to connect this to the end. Okay, so this is what the front part of our pattern is looking like. It's quite easy to make. You just need to know your calculations for you to get it perfectly. So I'll just go ahead and label this the front. Okay, so the front is like the easiest part. Now for the waist area of this, I'm going to come down from the center front of my paper by 1 inch, and then I'll connect it to the edge. This is in order to avoid the bulge we have, always those folds we have in front of our skirt. Even if you're making this as a skirt, you can totally do this. Okay, it helps to remove those folds you have in front of your skirt. So for the back, I've gone ahead to just mark out 3 inches inwards for my zip allowance. You can see that point where I marked and I wrote a straight line. I went ahead to mark my hip point, and I went ahead to mark my knee and the full length. Now I'm extending the hip line into that zip line I marked. So that 1.5 inches we added for the back, we're going to mark it down at the hip point firstly, okay, and after which we connect it to the edge of the waistline around the zip area. So just watch how I'm connecting this so that you are getting this correctly. So you mark 1.5 inches on the hip point. Okay, that's outside the main measurement, right? And then you connect it to the waist to meet it up there. Then the next we're going to get is the underbutt measurement. So to get the underbutt measurement, go ahead and take the difference from your waist to your hip. That's the distance from the hip waist to the hip, and then you minus 1 inch for that. So the distance of the waist to hip I'm working with is 8 inches minus 1 7. So I just went ahead to mark 7 inches, and then I'm connecting the line to meet what I have at the hip area, like so. Okay, so you can see what we have. So this is what we're going to have for now. We're going to work on other things before coming back to that. Now, to place our hip circumference, remember the measurement we had was 11.25 when we did our calculation earlier. So this measurement can differ. It depends on your hip size, okay? The measurement depends on your hip size. So I'm going to take that measurement from that 1.5 inches point I came out. Okay, so you'll notice where I'm placing my tape to take this measurement. So the end of your measurement should be at that 1.5 inches point you're coming out for around the hip area. Go ahead and mark it. Then go ahead and place quarter of your round waist measurement at the top of your paper. So I hope you understand what I am saying. If you don't, just watch this video. I am sure you're going to get the hang of it. Okay, so I just made a mark there, and I'll go ahead to connect the points I've marked at the waist and at the hip together, like so. Okay, so now to get a very good curve for this, I'll come down from the hip area by that's my underbutt measurement again, which is 7 inches, and I will just rule a straight line, okay, to meet this other point. Now, after doing that, at that point, I'll go ahead and minus 1 inch, just like I did in front, okay. I'll minus 1 inch at that point, mark it down, and then I will use my rule and connect it to that point. Okay, I'm just trying to get a very good curve for this, and I will extend that to the full length of the skirt. Okay, so this is what we have after I did that. Now the next thing we want to mark is our zip allowance. So for this, I'm using 1 inch for the zip allowance. This is because this is also what I used for the top. I'm making a gown actually. So I'm using 1 inch for my zipper allowance. So I'm taking this measurement from that line. Around the curve areas too, you just take your 1 inch upwards like so down to the full length of your pattern paper, and after that you go ahead and connect it using your straight rule. Okay, so I'm using the straight rule to just make my connections like so, you can see. So your connection should just follow the marks you have made. Okay, so you can also go ahead to use 1.5 inches for your zip allowance. Okay, you can use 1.5 inches for your zip allowance, but I'm using 1 inch for this because this is what I wanted. So this is what it looks like. I'll just go ahead and label this the zip allowance area. Okay, so after doing that, if you notice any points that isn't properly curved, you can go ahead and curve it. So this is our back pattern of our dartless skirt using a butt contour. So I'm placing the front on top of it. You can see how they are matching, right? You can see how this is matching perfectly. The difference we have here is just the zip allowance area. So you can see how everywhere is matching. This is what you should have by the time you finish. Now to cut this out on the fabric, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric. I've placed my pattern on top of it. I'm adding 1.5 inches to the sides of my pattern. Now, so that I didn't add any seam allowance while I was cutting out the pattern, so I'm adding that allowance to my fabric right now, and I'm just going to trace it down with my rule, connect them where they're supposed to be. Okay, so I'm just going ahead to pin it firstly so that it's not moving, and then I just went ahead to connect the points which are marked together like so. Okay, so then for the down part, I'm going to be adding 2 inches of hemming allowance. I also didn't add this while I was drafting out my pattern. So I'm adding my hemming allowance of 2 inches to the down. You can add more than this, but I just wanted to use 2 inches. And then for the center back, because I'm cutting the back pattern, I'll be adding half of an inch, which I'll be using to turn the lining, okay, at the back. Okay, I just added half of an inch at that point down to the top, and I'll go ahead to connect it also by the time I finish doing that. So I'm just using my free hand to connect those points which I have marked together like so. All right, then at the top I'll be adding half inch also. Now this is because I'm making a gown. This is going to be a gown, so I'm adding half inch to be the joining allowance to add to the top of this. So if you're making a skirt, you don't need this allowance at all, the one at the top. You can just let that be. All right, so you can just let that be, and then you just add your band on top of it. So after doing that, I just went in with my scissors to cut it out following the lines which I have marked earlier. Okay, so this is what we have for the front. This is what it's looking like. I will just go ahead and keep this aside for the back. So now for the front, I did the same thing. I added 2 inches to the edge for my hemming allowance. I added 1.5 inches to the side for my joining allowance, and then at the top I added half of an inch. Okay, so the side allowance is the seam allowance. Okay, so this is what we have for the front. I went ahead to cut this out on my lining, and then I ensured that the lining was 2 inches shorter. So the 2 inches I added to the fabric, I did not add that to the lining. Okay, that's just what I'm saying. I just cut out my lining to be exactly what I have on my pattern. Now we're going to start stitching this down. We're starting with the front. I've moved my pattern. I'm going to open this up so you see what I have. Now we're going to place our fabric to the lining, right side to right side. So just go ahead and mark the wrong side of your lining so that you're not mistaken. And then you align the edge, which is the bottom part of your piece. Ensure that it is aligned properly, okay? So one thing you should always do is to iron your fabric, especially the lining piece, before you cut out and stitch. Okay, it makes your work look nice at the end of the day. So what we're going to do is to align the edge of this and go ahead and stitch it down. So you can see the excesses we have at the top. We're going to work on that. Then for the back piece also, I'm going to bring it in, take off my pins. Okay, I also did the same thing like I did for the front. Cut out the lining to be 2 inches shorter than what I have at the for the main fabric. Okay, so I'm going to align this together. Now for the back piece, you want to be really careful. So I'm placing this back again so that I can make a notch for my zip allowance. Now this is because if you notice both sides they have like a curve to this, you might totally get this wrong if you don't make that mark. So I just went ahead to just make a little notch at that point to indicate my zip allowance point. It is extremely important. And another thing for the back piece, you want to take note of the wrong side of your lining so that you don't end up messing the entire thing up. Remember, the both of them have curves. Okay, so we're going to place them together like so, starting with this piece. We're going to place them, this is the back piece, so we're going to place them, align them, and then also stitch the edge of this. So this is what it looks like for the front after I finished, and I went ahead to stop stitch towards the lining area to give it a relaxed feel. Now I'm going to align this. I'm going to drag up my lining to meet up the waist, yeah, to meet up the main fabric so that it is aligning properly. Now that 2 inches we added for hemming allowance, we're going to practically drag that in. Okay, that's just what I'm saying. You know, the normal way of stitching your skirt. So you drag that in so that it align on the top. Go ahead and stitch it at the sides by 1/2 inch. Flip it over to the right side and give it a very, very good press. Okay, you're going to repeat the same thing for the back piece. This is one piece of the back. I've gone ahead to stitch it down also. I also top stitch like I did in front. Okay, so what I'll do is also to align this piece together, ensuring that it is well placed, and go ahead and stitch the sides by 1/2 inch. Remember to make a notch at your zip allowance area. It is crucial, it is important. Okay, so this is what I have after I finished doing that. You can see how nice this is looking. I've gone ahead to turn it out to the right side. I also went ahead to give it a really good press. Now, if you're making this as a skirt, okay, the next thing you want to do is to join your back piece. So this is the back. This is what it looks like. This is what the back looks like. Okay, the next thing you want to do is to join the back piece. What you want to do is to align your back piece and then you join that. So remember I said I'm making this as a gown, so I will not be joining this in this tutorial. If you want to see the video of where I completed this, please subscribe to the channel. Keep watching, like turn on your notification bell. I'll be posting that video later on in this week. So if you're making this as a skirt, you're going to lay your piece, that's the back piece, right side to right side. Ensure it is matching, and then from the top, which is where you have your zip allowance area, you're going to measure the zip length where you want your zip to start. And also remember that you're going to fix a band if you're making a skirt. So sorry, you need to take note of that. Then from the edge, you measure up the slit length you want. Now the thing you need to note is that the longer your skirt, the longer your slits for ease of movement. Okay, so I'm going to use my chalk to just show you what I'm trying to say. So for example, say I want my slits to be 18 inches. I just mark that down, and then I want the zip to stop at 8 inches at the top. I just marked it down also. So what I'm going to do if I'm making a skirt is to mark 1 inch from where my zip will end to where my slit will start. Okay, so I'm going to just mark 1 inches down to that point, and then I will stitch it down, keep it in place. So I'll just use my pin to show you what I'm saying. I will just pin that point and then show you what I'm trying to what I'm trying to explain. Okay, so I just want you to get the hang of this in case you're making a skirt. All right, but I know you already know that. So this is what it's going to look like by the time you stitch it down. So that part will just be closed, and then you have this other part open for where your slit will be. Okay, so you can see how this looks like from the back. So the next thing you want to do is to join your skirt together. So for this, you're going to lay your fabric right side to right side, the right side of the back to the right side of the front, and go ahead and join them together. You take your body measurements, you join them together. After that, you fix your band, you fix your zipper, and you're going to have the perfect dartless skirt with both contour using the hip allocation method. I promise you it's going to come out looking so gorgeous. Okay, so you need to keep watch on the channel so you see how I finished making the video you saw at the intro. All right, so if you're here to subscribe to the channel, do well to subscribe, and please give this video a thumbs up. Let me know of your thoughts in the comment section. I promise to answer. So this is what it looks like by the time I finish. You can see the fitting it gives the manic, and I went ahead to make this little piece. If you're interested in seeing how I made this, let me know in the comment section and I'll drop a tutorial on that. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and I'll see you the next time. Bye.